Time once again for the Kaufman Corner podcast with you as always, David Lesky from Inside the Crown. Of course, former Royal Les Norman, host of Breaking the Norm on Sports Radio 810 WHB. My name is Soren Petro from also Sports Radio 810 WHB. We're talking Royals baseball here on a Thursday morning. If you're catching us via the podcast, remember you can be a part of the conversation. We're live. You can be in the chat room, get your thoughts heard in the chat room. 8:30 on a Thursday, 8:30 Central is when we go live. We're talking about Cole Ragans. A lot of discussion about him being shopped, the Boston Red Sox being the primary shopper. Is this true? What would it take to actually move Cole Ragans? Should the Royals be moving Cole Ragans? We'll talk about that. Reaction to the free agent signings that have gone down so far. What does it mean for the Royals? Some of the deals that have happened. Anybody get away that we thought would be a good fit for the Royals? Who do they target right now in free agency? We'll cover that. Alex Lange is a Royal. It's been a little while since we've been live here on the Kaufman Corner, so we'll talk about what the Royals added in their new bullpen piece. Local kid coming home to the Kansas City Royals, and they have a new pitching coach, Mike McFerran, added to the equation. We will talk about that as well. We're discussing it all right here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
You're listening to the Kaufman Corner Podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by David Lesky, Les Norman, and Soren Petro. David Lesky is an accomplished author and the publisher of the Inside the Crown Royals baseball newsletter. Les Norman is a former Royals outfielder. He's the host of Breaking the Norm with Les Norman on Sports Radio 810 WHB, as well as the author of Teaching the Tools of Hitting. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are your hosts, David Lesky, Les Norman, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. Off and running here on a Thursday morning with the Kaufman Corner podcast. And guys, let's talk about this Cole Ragans discussion. Is he really being shopped? There's a lot of fodder coming out of Boston about Jarren Duran for Cole Ragans. There are quotes in Boston newspapers from J.J. Piccolo. Nobody is mentioning the fact that these quotes came from October 3rd, but they're being regenerated and talked about the Royals' depth of pitching and being interested in an outfield bat. We'll start with you, David. Are you buying that Cole Ragans is really, on the brink of going to Boston, or is in heavy discussion to be a Boston Red Sox sometime in the near future?
No, I am buying that they're not dumb and will not say no to anybody but Bobby Witt Jr. I think that the Royals know that what we know, right? That if they want to win a World Series, they need an ace. They can get to the playoffs. I mean, truly, we watched what happened this past season. They didn't need Cole Ragans to get to the playoffs. They needed bats. I did the math. They got -2 WAR basically from their corner outfielders. If you go get Jarren Duran, that's +6. And they missed playoffs by 5 games. It's dirty math. It's not. That doesn't actually tell you the whole story. But it's pretty obvious to see they could have made the playoffs without Cole Ragans. They can't win the World Series without a Cole Ragans, whether it's him or another ace, and they know that. And so they're not eager to trade him. They are, if they get back a king's ransom, if they get back a deal, they're probably not going to get offered. I think they would trade Cole Ragans, but I don't think that he's eminently available or about to be moved or whatever.
Yeah, that it feels that way to me as well. The people I've talked to are kind of, with the Royals, kind of like, I'm not sure why this is so hot and heavy right now. All of a sudden, everyone's calling them going, hey, you're moving Ragans. And they're like, yeah, no, well, listen, I think they're smart, less in the sense that they're, as a small market club, nobody is off limits. They've got to listen. They've got to use all their resources. They can't just be like, nope, these 5 players are untouchable because we'll just buy whatever we need. They have to listen. And so I think that has become That has taken on fuel in the Boston market, where the Red Sox are 1 or 2, maybe 2 now behind the Patriots as far as the pecking order. And so the conversation is they feel like the Red Sox are close. What's the one piece? What does everybody want? They want Cole Ragans. So therefore, I think the media is feeding the ambition of the Red Sox fans in Boston. And because it's Boston, that gets regurgitated on a national level much more, which has echoed its way to Kansas City and has people in Kansas City thinking that Cole Ragans is about to be dealt. I don't think that's the case, but should it be? Is this the piece less that they should be talking about trading, because it may bring back the most when it comes to fixing their offensive woes?
Sometimes I wonder if a lot of these rumors and these things don't get started because they want people in Kansas City to hear it, and they want people to kind of start putting pressure on the organization. So then what is this fantasy becomes, they try to sneak it and force it into reality a little bit. I mean, that after watching this football this weekend, I would trade for Drake Mays right now, put him in the corner outfield and see what he can do. He's going to be able to throw it. So that would be exciting. But no, in reality, um, you're right. Both of you guys are right. They do need to listen, but it's interesting how when Noah Cameron was part of this, the things that we were going to have to give up to get Jaron Duran it was nonsensical. And then now the Cole Ragans talk has crept in, and yes, of course they'll listen to anything. But just on what David said, you can't win a World Series if you don't have that legitimate ace, and he is that legitimate ace when he's healthy. The only thing I'll say on that is it depends on what the Royals' mindset is right now. Are they in this mode of we're probably not going to win a World Series for maybe 2 to 3 years, or at least compete, so we're willing? I hope that's not the case, but it's worth being talked about out loud. So hopefully they're in that mode of, yeah, we could win the World Series next year if we can get the right piece, or maybe 2 years. And so that's why they need to listen. I'm hoping we can compete right now in the playoffs, and within a year or two, we could be back to the World Series.
Yeah, I think I like this. Creating competition for Reagan should drive up the price. I agree. Like, if people are out there and they want to come in, you definitely want to get what it is. And I think John's on a Boston fans. We're even talking about a Vinny trade, which with Jack Caglione. Like, I think all those things, like we said, should be listened to.
Mhm.
Right. But Boston fans will cook it up. And I think the Boston media will cook up just a sweetheart of a deal that the Royals aren't going to do. And I think that's the reality. I want to be clear. The Boston Red Sox asked about Cole Ragans at the trade deadline. Like, Chris Bubic was being discussed, and the Red Sox, and they were talking about Jaron Duran, Wilyer Ibar. The Red Sox outfield depth was being discussed, and the Red Sox kept coming around and wanting Cole Ragans, and the Royals weren't willing to do it then. Right now,
when he was hurt.
Now he's come back.
Yeah.
He's pitched 15 innings, struck out 22, so he looks healthy. So the appetite is even higher. But I think also the value is higher with Cole Ragans. I think the story on this is more, David, that the Royals would like to move Chris Bubic because they only have 1 year of control. If they're going to move anybody, they don't want to move Cole Ragans. But I think the story is that they're not asking. The Red Sox, and right now, at least publicly, that we know about, no one is asking about Chris Bubic. They're coming to Cole Ragans, which speaks to the fact that, do they need to pivot, whether it's to Ragans or to Noah Cameron or to their minor league depth? If they're going to find what they want to help this year's team, do they need to start accepting the fact that nobody is going to buy Chris Bubic as healthy until they see him on the mound? Like, those appearances by Cole Ragans were gold. Everybody has bought in that Cole Ragans is healthy. Nobody is ready to say that Chris Bubic is healthy, even though the Royals will tell you that he is right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I was going to say that all the rumors were around Chris Bubic, like 2-3 weeks ago, whatever. I mean, I feel like we talked about it a couple, maybe like I said, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then who was it? Passan, who came out and said he doesn't think he's going to get traded because he doesn't think he's getting the bites. And then all of a sudden it shifts back to Cole Ragans. And so, yeah, it feels like, okay, we put this out here and people are ignoring it. So now we're going to put the light beer out, and now we're going to put the good beer out and see if people take it. And I think that's it makes sense. I don't know. I don't know that they have to trade. They do have to pivot, probably. They're not going to get the impact bat they want for Chris Bubic. I think they thought they were going to get even if it was for 1 year. And there's a part of me that wonders. Sorry, I'm rambling a little bit because my thoughts are gathering. But there's a part of me that wonders: did they think they had Chris Bubich for Taylor Ward, and they were good to go, and then the Orioles came in and offered more upside? I don't. Maybe that could be, and so they go, well, who wants Chris Bubich now? And there's not a lot of guys who are 1 year from free agency because that's kind of the value on an injured pitcher. So I do think that they might need to pivot or piece it together. Hope that Connor Dawson and Marcus Thames can work with Alex Zumwalt and make hitters better and go get a guy who maybe had a down year. Maybe I don't want him. Michael Conforto, a guy like that you say, okay, they can fix him and turn him back into a guy who was, what he was a couple of years. I do think a lot of this stems from Chris Bubich not getting the return they were hoping for. Yeah. Is the long answer.
The Red Sox have also acquired Sonny Gray, Les, which maybe that is like Red Sox fans can dream about Cole Ragans, but maybe that's their consolation prize, and they're not out there. I still think they need pitching help in Boston, so I don't think it means they're out of the mix, but it does kind of change the view of things. What would it take, Les, to move Cole Ragans, or should Cole Ragans be completely untouchable for a Royals team that was in the playoffs 2 years ago and had a winning record this past year?
I think the percentage is low. I wouldn't say it's a 0% chance, but I would say it's pretty low. I mean, you have to be serious again about winning a World Series. And the three of us have talked about this for a couple months now, kind of since the offseason, about how he is that legitimate ace. And the Royals are going to have to take that ace. I mean, if you think about it, if it's Waka, Lugo, Cameron, and then it's, a mix of those other guys, like if Bubich is healthy and he pitches, but yet you don't know. I mean, what of those four are legitimate one? Who would step in? And if you already have a legitimate one, why would you trade him away? And so I feel like the percentage is just really low. I think to really move him, and let's just throw Boston out there. You're talking about a Jarren Duran. You're talking about a couple top prospects in there, because I know Duran is a sought after outfielder, but yet he's not Kyle Schwarber. He's a little bit better defensively than Schwarber. I'm just talking offensively there.
Right.
But he's not all of those things that maybe some other power guys are that, and Schwarber, I think, what did he hit, like 250 this year, 240 to 250? That's like the three of us hitting 340. I mean, Schwarber usually hits like between 190 and 210, but hits 50 home runs. So I think the percentage is really low. You'd have to get Duran plus. I mean, when Bubich was involved in that Duran talk, it was the Royals that were going to have to give a lot of stuff up. In the Reagan talk, it's the Red Sox that are going to have to give a lot up. So it'd have to be a couple legitimate top prospects and a Jarren Duran, and I just don't think that's going to happen.
David, is one of the things the Royals need to do, are we finding out, I've talked about the fact that, the markets in the NFL, they don't let the 25-year-old left tackle get to free agency, right? The 26-year-old defensive end does not get to free agency in the NFL. Teams have recognized where the value is. It's youth, it's the premium positions, and they're just, you can't go find them in free agency. When you look at the bats that are out there right now, and we'll get to Cedric Mullins in a minute. I'm sure there was a tear that rolled down Les Norman's cheek when Cedric Mullins
legitimate too.
came off the market. But like when you look at what's out there, everyone's like 31, 32. Like there are no premium, answers at the outfield spot for free agency, which means that is this it that teams have just recognized pitchers get hurt, so they're all devalued. And you this is the going rate. Cole Ragans does not bring. We know he has ace stuff, but he too has been hurt. And like, if the Royals are going to get an everyday outfielder that's in their 20s, they're going to have to swallow hard, and they're going to have to move more than they think he's actually worth.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you guys follow Thomas. I think he says Nestico is his last name. His TJ stats, just some really good stuff. If you've seen those, the pitching diagrams that come up after starts, he's the one who does a lot of those. Anyway. He put out a Ragans deal with the Red Sox, and this I thought this was interesting because he's not a Royals fan. Duran, Kyle Harrison, and Josh Nixon Garcia, and I'm going, yeah, okay. So somebody other than a Royals fan says Ragans is worth more than Jarren Duran, which I thought that was interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think in general, you're right. The free agency is not an avenue to go get an everyday guy unless you're going to spend $400 million. I mean, you want to go get Kyle Tucker. that'd be great. I think he would be a phenomenal fit on literally every team. I don't think there's any team that looks at Kyle Tucker and goes, "Nah, we don't have a need for him." But you've got to spend $400 million, and I don't know that they will. Because I'm looking at the list right now. Cody Bellinger. Bellinger is probably the best of the second bunch. He doesn't hit the ball hard. I would not give him 6 years and $150 million. You got Austin Hayes. He doesn't hit righties. I mean, you've got Rob Refsnyder doesn't hit righties. He's a solid player. He's 35 years old though too. Harrison Bader actually didn't hit lefties this year, which was weird, and he hasn't hit lefties in 3 of the last 4 years. I mean, so yeah, there's not a lot out there. And so last year the Royals, and I wrote about this, were responsible, and I understood it. I did. They did not go longer. I didn't late on Santander, but they didn't go longer or more. They didn't pry him away from his deal with the Blue Jays. They didn't go longer on Jurickson Profar. They didn't make the trade that the Angels wanted for Taylor Ward. Like they were responsible, and I think that's a fair and reasonable stance to take. What it's done is it means they can't be responsible again, because they may have to be a little stupid because they need that bat, and they need to work. The need was actually not as big last year as it is this year. I mentioned this, I don't know, 50 times during the season. 2024 Melendez and Renfroe on the 2025 team, and they probably make the playoffs. They didn't get that. They were horrible. They were so bad that the need is even bigger now, and so their responsibility last year is probably going to need to lead to irresponsibility this year.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like, look, you can play a game of chicken. The Red Sox need to move an outfielder, right? They have a glut. So you can play the game of chicken and say you're going to have to come around eventually. Now, we don't know who else is out there looking for an outfielder. But the Royals also are sitting there with everybody looking at them going, well, you need to move a starter, right? And eventually, if you can't move somebody else, if you can't move Bubic, you're going to have to move Ragans to somebody, and we'll be there ready to scoop it up and get him for 80 cents on the dollar. And so that is what I think is going on. The question is, will the winter meetings, when everybody gets in a room, will the urgency be created there, right? Like, I think that's going to be the question, because, do the Royals have to trade a starting pitcher? No, they've got options on guys and they can send them down, but I really don't think they want to come to spring training with the same outfield mix, right? And, I do think at some point rubber's going to have to meet the road. And I think they're going to have to swallow hard and go, okay, the price is more than we want to give. That's just the way it looks like it's going right now for this team. And we'll see what they end up getting done. All right, we'll talk about some of the free agents that have been signed. I mentioned Cedric Mullins coming off the board. That was an outfielder that Les had his eye on. We'll talk about that next here after you hear from our friends at Greenlight.
Greenlight Dispensary, voted Kansas City's best dispensary and your go-to for quick, convenient service. With 4 locations across the Kansas City area, we're never far away. Our drive-through and express windows make it easy to get in, get out, and get on with your day. Our award-winning service is powered by a team of experts dedicated to making your experience seamless and enjoyable. It's no wonder we've been voted the best. Convenient locations, fast service, knowledgeable staff. That's the Greenlight difference. Visit us today.
This episode of Kaufman Corner is brought to you by Frontier Justice, where freedom is a lifestyle grounded in safety, responsibility, and respect. With locations in Lee's Summit, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, and Jenks, Oklahoma, Frontier Justice offers firearms retail, a premier indoor shooting range, and training all under one roof. Whether you're new to shooting or a seasoned pro, you'll find expert staff, top-tier gear, and a strong sense of community. Faith, family, freedom. That's what Frontier Justice stands for. Visit frontier-justice.com to learn more.
All right, let's talk about the free agent market. Anybody, David, come off the board that you're a little distraught? I'll tell you, Cody Ponce was a name. I know he's a starting pitcher, but I felt like, if you are kind of boxed in and you've read the room and it's going to cost you more than you like in free agency, and the market is saying, well, there's no outfielder we love to spend on. Well, why not go find a good value at starting pitching? And then that might make it easier for you to swallow hard and move some other pitching that you've got in your system. Cody Ponce is a kid coming back from, I think, your Korean league, where he went over, found a new pitch. He's kind of is it Eric Fetty? He's the new version, but this kid throws upwards of 98 miles an hour. Signed 3 years, $30 million with Toronto, which apparently has no end of money. because they've already spent on Dylan Cease as well, and they're rumored to be the lead on Kyle Tucker. So maybe the whole process just needs the Blue Jays to spend out, and then everybody else can get there. But Cedric Mullins was a guy that Les liked. Like, are you seeing anything in what we've seen so far, David, that the Royals need to react to?
No, I mean, sort of. Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to have had Ponce. I don't know that I would have given him 3 and 30. I think that's. I would be concerned about the Korean. The ball is different, and so what I've been reading about this a little bit, like the vertical break dips a fair amount on fastballs. So if your fastball is really riding in Korea, it's not going to do that in the U.S. Now teams are smart, and so they know that if it's 20 inches, it's going to be 17, which is still really good, like that sort of thing. So it doesn't mean that he's going to be a bad pitcher. I would have been hesitant on 3 years for him though. But 10 million a year isn't that much money in baseball terms. So maybe I do think there's a little bit of a miss there. I wasn't very high on Cedric Mullins. I would have liked to have had him, but I think 7 million is probably what he deserved, but a little bit richer than I would probably gone 3 or 4 million on him. And if the Rays had gotten him for 3.5 million, I would have said, well, the Royals missed an opportunity here. The Royals missed an opportunity to raise their floor. But at 7 million, again, not that much money baseball wise. I'm not too upset about that. What I do think is interesting with the free agent market, Dylan Cease at 7 and 210. The Royals didn't miss on that. I don't want to say that, but I think what it shows, and kind of dipping back into the Ragans conversation a very little bit, is ERA is not relevant to teams. They don't care. They care about the stuff. And the Royals, that also relates to like Noah Cameron. ERA is not relevant. A 2.99 ERA, the teams don't look at that and go, wow, he was an ace. No, he pitched to an ace level for a season. They do not see him as an ace moving forward. And so I think the free agent market has told us that as well. But I don't think the Royals have missed necessarily on anything yet. But as guys come off the board, there's still 29 teams that didn't sign this guy, and now there's one less guy for them to sign. So that does impact the Royals' plans.
Yeah. There just aren't many everyday outfielders. That's one of the things on the shopping list, Les, for the Royals. And there just aren't. And Cedric Mullins was a guy that, I know the numbers aren't off the charts, but you felt like you could at least put him out there every day and you were going to get a professional big league at bat. You're going to get a professional big league outfield. And so that's what makes that one perhaps a little bit. I know everybody wants a right-handed bat. They want a right-handed platoon with Jack Caglione. At least that's what J.J. Picollo said early in the process. And he doesn't fit that mold, but I mean, who does, right? Mm-hmm. And so as these start to come off the board, you start to get to where like, okay, are you going to overpay for your fifth choice, right? Or should you have, yeah, it would have taken 2 years to get Cedric Mullins, and we really only want to give him a 1 year prove it to bounce back from a horrible showing with the New York Mets after being traded to the Mets at the end of last year. Okay, that's great. That's what you want, but you may get boxed in and have to give even more for someone that you don't think as much of later on.
Yeah, this is a really frustrating thing for me because you guys have heard me bellyache about the whole years and years of let's sign a free agent outfielder. It seemed like the corner outfield in Kansas City was the place where used to be good careers go to die. And it was just frustrating over and over because we let the Jermaine Dyes go and we couldn't afford the Carlos Beltrons anymore. And so, we've had him and got rid of him. Cedric Mullins for me I would have maybe given him a 2 year deal. I know the numbers weren't great, but again, I'm also a believer that sometimes a different scenario from a big market, maybe down to a smaller market, can sometimes let you relax a little bit and play a little bit. Sometimes when you're an outfielder or any player and you go to a big market, the spotlight's a lot hotter and it doesn't go off of you. Where in Kansas City, it's not as much, and maybe you can relax a little bit and play. So I feel like a little bit, I don't know the exact numbers I would have come up with, but I feel like Cedric Mullins was a little bit of a miss that we could have had him. But it's just a weird market. I'm starting to get to the point as we get closer into the turn of the year, now that it's December, maybe we are going to have to go to that 1 year deal. Maybe we are going to have to get that rent outfielder in the corner or sign a Harrison Bader to a couple of years. I mean, I'm mixed on him. I love the way the guy plays outfield, but again, left-handed pitching is an issue. So yeah, it's a frustrating market, but I'm starting to teeter back a little bit. We still need that corner outfielder, and I think we got to get to a point where, okay, it might be time to sign somebody because this day goes by and then another one signs, and then this day goes by and another one signs, and then what are we going to do? Not get a corner outfielder and just go with what we've done, or how often do the Royals settle for a signing and then they have to hurry up and sign somebody that they really didn't want? But now they got to do something to make some kind of change. And that's a frustrating place for me that the Royals are in.
Yeah, where do they target now, David?
I mean, the thing is, I don't think their targets are off the board. So I think that they're still in pretty decent shape. It's not like
well, that is,
I never got.
You are right. It's amazing that the baseball free agency, like they have a show on ESPN for NBA free agency the moment it starts. And when it starts, they are immediately talking about deals all over the board. The NFL free agency.
NFL too, yeah.
You have a legal tampering period because they know everyone was going to do it anyway. So you have discussions. And as soon as the date opens, deals are being announced. But in baseball, it seems like you need spring training to open to get anything done. So you are right, David. There's lots of names on the board, but like that should mean that a team like you look at the Rays, Jake Fraley. I know most people are going to be like, I don't know who that is. You'd have to be like a fantasy baseball player to know who he is. He's a platoon outfielder, but like he's a nice, he's the big side of the platoon. And the Rays immediately moved and grabbed him. Like they're one of the teams that know what they want. They target him. They say, this is it. And they go get guys. The rest of the industry, the Royals included, seem to not be able to move. They're paralyzed by waiting for what the rest of the market's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think there are a handful of teams that jump real fast. The Rays are one of them. Have you looked at the Rays lineup? Kind of a side note on Roster Resource, at least. That might be the biggest drop from 4 to 5 through 9 of any lineup I've ever seen. They need more than the Royals somehow. Their top 4 competes with anybody. Their 5 through 9 competes with nobody. I thought that was interesting. But I mean, I wrote the free agent about a bunch of free agents 2-3 weeks ago, something like that. No, gosh, almost a month ago, November 12th. I'm scrolling through the list. The ones that are off the board took the qualifying offer.
Right.
Pretty much. I mean, that was pretty much it. I think the Royals, I think their plan is a right-handed bat that can either platoon with Jack Caglione or they sign Mike Yastrzemski. And then they figure out how to handle Jack Caglione. I think that's kind of their plan right there. And they'd love to trade for another. I think in a perfect world, the Royals get 3 new bats. That's what they want. And of their targets, I don't know who's Gleyber Torres, I think was probably a target. He's out. Who else? Maybe Mullins was. I never heard him connected to the Royals. I don't know if you guys did. Nobody mentioned him. I was surprised that I didn't, but I never heard that. So I think they can still do pretty much whatever they want, but it goes back to one is now off the board, and which means there's one left. So the other 29 teams are now going after 26 guys instead of 27 guys. And eventually you get to a point where 14 teams are going after 2 guys and you're left without a chair. And so I do think that they are in such desperate need that I think it would behoove them to move quickly. And they don't have the luxury of saying, hey, we'll figure out what's left and we'll make it work. They don't have that luxury this year. So I think they need to make a move quickly.
Les, it does seem like a lot of these teams are like, okay, well, we can't move until Kyle Tucker comes off the board because we might get Kyle Tucker, right? And we've seen guys like Blake Snell end up signing 1-year deals and 2-year deals because they sit and they wait, and then all of a sudden there's no money there for them, and they're and we'll see what happens in the next collective bargaining agreement. They're talking about collusion and everything, but sometimes it's not collusion. It's just like, well, we have to move on.
Yeah.
Right. But it does seem like, perhaps if they're, the bats that you want to sign, like we need Kyle Tucker to set the market so everybody else can fall in. Like he's going to reset the outfield market to some degree. Right. And at least he's going to set this offseason's market, and then everybody else can slot in underneath. And unless you're going like, we like Jake Fraley and we'll swoop in with a 1-year deal, like you're not able to get anything done. And it's killing the Royals. And it's why I think we pivot back and say, okay, does this mean that they just have to go grin and bear it and make a trade? Or Is this them being smart and just waiting the market out? And in the end, there's going to be all these guys as spring training approaches that are going to be signing, and they're going to be able to gobble up a number of bats, and they're going to look really smart.
I mean, that's always a possibility, but if Kyle Tucker is going to set the market, which I think we know he is, are the Royals really that kind of team with that much money to spend? I mean, every team, it's a business, and every team wants to save money and not spend it if they don't have to. But there's still those teams out there once Kyle Tucker does set the market. Are the Royals that team that, okay, now all of a sudden Kyle Tucker signs, and then they all of a sudden start wringing their hands like, okay, now here we go. Let's go ahead and dive in and let's go after this guy. I just don't feel like the Royals are in the position to be that team right now. So I'm with David on the sense that I would rather try to move not out of impatience, but not let something like a Kyle Tucker wait for that, because then all of a sudden all these other deals are being made, and then they've got this list of 4 or 5 different guys in order they want in a corner outfield spot, and they're all gone. So I feel like it would behoove the Royals to move a little bit faster instead of waiting, because I think they could look smart in spring training, like you say, but I think they run a risk of not being in a position to do that, because all the good outfielders that could really help the Royals are going to be gone. And then you're stuck either having to overpay in spring training or nobody's there worth it. And then we end up being stuck with the same situation that we had last year.
You mentioned Mike Yastrzemski, and I think, at least the initial reports where he wanted multiple years. The Royals were more interested in a 1-year deal. So maybe he's got to cycle all the way around the market, and he'll come back and say, okay, this was a good fit. Harrison Bader's name has been mentioned. David, you got some names that should be at the top of the Royals list?
Well, I mean, free agent wise, there's a handful, right? I think you can pair like a Mike Yastrzemski with Lane Thomas. Rob Refsnyder has been really good as a short side platoon bat for 2 or 3 years now, maybe more. I'm not even sure how long it's been, but Chas McCormick is a guy who I think is interesting if you want to get a bounce back, but you're not excited about Chas McCormick. He's a guy you hope can be what he was, 23. He was really good. I don't love Harrison Bader. And the reason that I say that is you look at some of these guys, you need to hit the ball hard at Kauffman Stadium. You don't need to necessarily hit the ball far, but you have to hit the ball hard. And Harrison Bader doesn't hit the ball hard. We've seen guys come in. Jonathan India came in with a profile. You think, okay, he's not going to hit the home runs, but he can go gap to gap. He doesn't hit the ball hard enough. He just doesn't. And I'm not saying that every player who does that is going to have a Jonathan India type first season in Kansas City, but I think they need to go after a guy with some better metrics. Bader, really good defensively, but just don't love it. And then, we can look to the trade market. Jeff Passan and Kylie McDaniel had a really great article. Was that 2 days ago, Monday or Tuesday? I can't remember now. With 9 guys, or there were actually 13 batters that were on the list. They had the Royals as a fit for 9 of them, which I think is pretty telling about what the Royals need.
Yeah.
I mean, the 4 they didn't have, I'll start with those real fast. 2 make sense to me. Yandy Diaz, first baseman, they're not going to trade for him. And Wilson Contreras, first baseman or catcher if he wants to move back. That makes sense. They didn't have Luis Robert, and they didn't have Alec Boehm. And Boehm makes a little more sense. I wouldn't move Michael Garcia off third base, not for Boehm especially, but they could do that. They could move him off third. But Robert makes some sense to me as a guy. If the White Sox have started to back off their ask, which that's another question. They have been asking for a return for 2023, Luis Robert Jr.
Yeah.
And he has not been that player since 2023. In fact, he's been bad. It's not just. I think he's on your fantasy team, right? Right.
Oh yeah, because my team sucks. Yeah. So I got all the guys.
So yeah. So you can't. If you're trading him as an upside play, okay, the Royals should get involved. If you're trading him as 2023, don't do it. So I get that, but some of the other names, I mean, there's a lot. It's Brandon Lau. If you want to get second base, I think he makes some sense. Ketel Marte, I think would be a dream if the return is not crazy, which I think it might be. Duran's on there. Brandon Donovan's on there, who's going to get a lot. One name that I was really intrigued by, and I hadn't thought about this at all, was CJ Abrams. Had not considered him as a possibility. He's a lefty bat. he's a shortstop, but he's not a shortstop. I mean, he needs to play second or outfield. Now you're trading for a guy and moving him. We've seen that before, but 25 years old, he's got pop, he's got the pedigree. I think that's really interesting. I don't know what I'd do. I don't know what level I'd go to on that, but he's an interesting name. And then the name that I've loved since, I don't know, mid 2024 was Wilyer Abreu from the Red Sox. I like him better than Duran. Yes, he's a platoon bat, but he's strong side platoon. He plays phenomenal defense. He has power. He's not the top of the order guy, but he can fit. You want to, I don't know where you want to hit Garcia, but if you get somebody at the top of the lineup, you go Witt, Pasquantino, Garcia, Abreu, Salvi, that 2 through 6, that as the kids say, that slaps. I think that's a good. I'm so old. that's a good 5 spot in that lineup. You get a guy to hit at the top, whether that's Yastrzemski against righties or whoever. I think it works.
Yeah, that's that is interesting. And I think if you can nail down the big side of the platoon, there's lots of
for sure
deals for right-handed bats. Right. I mean, like what the Royals got for Randall Grichuk, I think has people like worried that like every right hand part of the platoon is going to be Randall Grichuk. Like there are better options that are out there for them to find. That's for sure. All right. We want to talk about Alex Lange coming home to the Royals. Also, they're filling out their pitching coach positions. We will do that right after you hear from our friends at Whataburger.
This isn't just any burger run. This is a burger run for Whataburger Sweet and Spicy Bacon Burger. 2 fresh all-beef patties with melty cheese, grilled onions, crispy bacon, and sweet and spicy pepper sauce. One for you, one for him, and one for your unofficial roommate, Brad. Always order an extra. You know, for Brad. The all-time favorite sweet and spicy bacon burger from Whataburger. Just like you like it.
This episode of Kaufman Corner is brought to you by Frontier Justice, where freedom is a lifestyle grounded in safety, responsibility, and respect. With locations in Lee's Summit, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, and Jenks, Oklahoma, Frontier Justice offers firearms retail, a premier indoor shooting range, and training all under one roof. Whether you're new to shooting or a seasoned pro, you'll find expert staff, top-tier gear, and a strong sense of community. Faith, family, freedom. That's what Frontier Justice stands for. Visit frontier-justice.com to learn more.
All right, let's talk about Alex Lange. What do the Royals get in signing Alex Lange, David?
They got a strikeout arm, which they needed so much more of. We talked about this a lot. Their bullpen didn't strike out batter. Well, the whole pitching staff didn't strike anybody out, but the bullpen specifically, they had the 3rd lowest strikeout rate in baseball. And so Alex Lange, they got a guy he missed most of the season. What did he pitch? 1 game in the big leagues, I think it was. But they got a guy who I think has the upside to be a dude in that bullpen. But they got it for $900,000. So if it doesn't work out, oh well. I mean, I hope it does because local guy is great. But he gets whiffs, which is huge. And the other thing that I think is really interesting, I talk about this a little bit, and I think we've talked about it a fair amount. I like diversity in a bullpen. And so you've got one guy who's a big fastball guy. You got a guy who's a slider guy. Alex Lange's a curveball guy. The Royals don't really have that guy. So it's a different look. It's a different, just a different way a hitter has to prepare for a bullpen. And I think it's big. It could end up being nothing, but I think that the upside of this move is on par with like if they had signed Hunter Harvey again. And I think it does take him out of Hunter Harvey, but this is a guy who can have that kind of impact on a bullpen as long as he can pitch.
I think it's interesting you say it takes him out of Hunter Harvey because 1 year, $900,000, it really shouldn't take him out of anybody, right? It's not like
money wise, no, but look at the bullpen. Where do they have a spot?
I think that's the key is if you can get better, you get better, and then you trade the depth
That's fair.
somewhere else. But they haven't been able to trade any of the starting pitching depth, so maybe I'm being a fool. Maybe the trade markets just aren't what they used to be. But 1 year, $900,000, local kid, swing and miss potential less. I mean, this is a quiet. This is their Jake Fraley, right? They had a guy, they target him. Clearly, the hometown part is part of the equation, and clearly he's like, listen, I got to rebuild my reputation. I need a prove it deal. and I might as well do it in my hometown. So it was an easy fit, but that's part of playing the market. And I think the Royals did a nice job here in getting a guy, and even if he ends up being hurt all the time, which I think is a distinct possibility based upon his track record, they're not breaking the bank. And if it does click, it's a big return.
Agree. You guys have said it all. I mean, it's a win-win, and I'll just add that he's been around the game a lot. He's a veteran guy that can help some other guys if need be as well. And again, it's weird to say it's a $900,000 contract with some incentives that performance based that can get him $1 million, and that's great. But on these terms, with the minimum salary in the big leagues approaching $800,000, I mean that's nothing in baseball terms, and so. They're hoping that he's hungry. They're hoping that he's comfortable back at home, like you said. Maybe he can get that 2023 form back. What do you have, like 26 saves in 2023? So, I mean, there's some potential there, and it seems like teams now are signing more guys coming off of injuries. They're trusting it a little bit more, and so I think it's a win for Alex Lange. I think it's a win for the community that knows him, and I think it's a win for the Royals because there's not a lot at stake. Everything's going to be an upside.
At his best, he's been 10 plus, pushing towards 11 Ks per nine, like David talking about the whiff rate. And then now I think the other thing is, and this is where you hope you get with your hitting coaches, but with Brian Sweeney, like whatever they are when they get here, you think there'll be more here once Brian Sweeney gets hold of them. So you've got a guy, you mentioned David being talking about the curveball. The hope is that Brian Sweeney gets his hands on him and makes him even more. For the Kansas City Royals. So that'll be good. Mike McFerran has been hired, David, as the assistant pitching coach, a guy that has no experience on the big league level. And, I'll weigh in here in a minute. I love that. I actually think that's a good thing. I'll get into that in a minute. What do you think of McFerran being added to the coaching staff?
Love it for multiple reasons. But yes, I think that a fresh set of eyes is, and I guess this is kind of the same thing. A fresh set of eyes is so huge. He's also not a voice from the organization, which the Royals do well with pitching now. I don't think we'd be upset if they had promoted somebody. If they had put Mitch Stetter in this role and then brought somebody from the minors to be the bullpen coach, you would go, okay, great. And we'd like that too, because they've done so well with pitching. But to get a different voice, you have to keep that. That's what good leaders do. They bring in different voices. They bring in different perspectives. And that's what they've done here. What I love, yes, he was a college guy. He coordinated the pitching lab at Wake Forest, which one person I talked to said their pitching lab, at least a couple years ago, was better than 28 big league teams. It was the Brewers and Dodgers were the two that it wasn't better than. And I love that. He understands pitching. He understands mechanics. He understands all this. But I talked to 3 different people who said the biggest thing, and this is I feel like this is, you have to have this to be a coach. He's a communicator. He understands how to communicate. I watched he actually done a number of hour-long type podcasts, and I geeked out and listened to a few of them. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting is he said, I don't take information away because I don't think they understand it. I make them understand it, basically. And that's huge. There's so much information out there. Use what you want, but at least have it. And I love that.
Yeah. Les, I think, a couple of years ago when the Twins lost their pitching coach to LSU, it spoke to the fact that like the LSU was paying more for a pitching coach than the Minnesota Twins, right? So the idea that like, oh, you're getting a guy from, out of the colleges. Wake Forest had a bunch of guys, get into the draft and go high in the draft. And this is one of the guys that's been behind it. I think this speaks to like David said, this is them looking for the best guy, not looking for the best resume. And my point about the LSU, the Twins losing their pitching coach to LSU is that a lot of times even the best resume is down in college.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in the big leagues, but this is again them not being afraid and not being typecast in the decisions that they make. They're looking for the best minds they can get around their players.
Yeah, this signing, first of all, is great for the Royals. I love it. I think the article I read that they brought him in to pick up the pitch design and diversity of thought were the 2 things that they really wanted him to get involved with Brian Sweeney in, which I think is fantastic. This is also great for other teams as well. They're going to see that this. We don't have the crystal ball, but I think this is going to work really well for the Royals. You had Ragans get hurt a little bit. You had Bubic get hurt a little bit, and that's not a pitching coach's fault. However, when you get a guy that is dealing with pitch design and really helping out with that, that's got to bring a really positive vibe in that clubhouse with the pitching staff. And then also pitchers are maybe going to want to come to Kansas City in the future because of that. So the game is changing in this area. It's really neat to see the Royals make this move and not stay old school. And yes, you're hearing me say that. It's great to get this new analytical diversity of thought, pitch design kind of mindset in there. And the final thing I'll say is that, in my years of teaching hitting, whether it's, a young kid all the way up to a kid at the college or lower professional level, not every mind is going to receive what you tell them. You have to be an artist in the sense of learning that person. And if it's the front door, I'm going to go in the front door and teach him this way and talk. And if it's a side door, if it's the back of the head kind of thing, everybody receives it with different personalities. And some people are standoffish and some people are sponges. You got to be able to know how to do that. And I think they hired him because they believe that he knows how to do that. It's not just that he's smart. It's not just that he comes from Wake Forest with a storied program. He also has the gift, not a talent, but a gift of being able to teach players on their level, not his level. And the fact that the Royals are doing that, I think, is going to really benefit this pitching staff.
And I think it speaks to the fact that they're not just like, oh, we're fine on pitching, right? Yeah. They're continuing to look and try to strengthen and enhance what was already a strength. We know that they were on the market for hitting coaches, but they didn't just go, okay, we got to do all that. We'll figure it out. And, it could have been easy to just promote from within, right?
Yeah.
But diversity of thought. They're always looking for new opinions and new ideas, and I think that's great.
Yeah. One other thing, you mentioned this. I talked to 3 different people about him, and they all said the A's farm system, where he was previously, the pitching this year took off in a way that they did not expect, and they think it's because of him. There are others, so it's not going to. I don't think it's going to fall off.
But he was part of the equation, if nothing else.
He was part of that equation, and if it does fall off, we know it was because of him. But so he has been in the professional ranks now for 2 years with the A's, and kind of worked his way up the ladder. But yeah, the A's system, the A's pitching in their system took huge steps this year, and he's a big part of that too. And so I just want to make sure that's said too, because it's not just his college experience; it's what he did in the pros too, as well.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. Listen, you can always support our Kaufman Corner podcast by supporting our great sponsors like Frontier Justice with locations at Lee Summit, KCK, Jenks, Oklahoma. Frontier Justice offers firearms retail, a premier indoor shooting range, and training all under one roof. You can learn more by going to their website, frontier-justice.com. Our friends at Greenlight Dispensary, 15 locations in Missouri, more on the way. Your go-to for all your cannabis needs is Greenlight. Tell them you saw them right here on the Kaufman Corner podcast. And, of course, our friends at Whataburger. They're open 24 hours. That's right, 24 hours a day. They save me late night a lot of the time. Breakfast, that's served 11 p to 11 a. Go get my favorite, the Patty Melt, today at your local Whataburger, a proud sponsor of the Kaufman Corner podcast. For David Lesky from Inside the Crown, Les Norman from Breaking the Norm, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.